The wrench slipped from my oil-slicked fingers, clattering against the concrete floor of Dad's garage like a gunshot in the dead of night. And in that split second, Jake's hand caught my wrist, not to steady me, but to pull me closer. His breath hot against my neck as he whispered words I'd never dreamed he'd say. "Austin, I can't pretend anymore," he growled, his straight guy facade cracking like the fissures in the old Chevy's engine block we'd been fixing side by side for hours. The summer heat turning the air into a pressure cooker of sweat and secrets. My heart slammed against my ribs, every nerve screaming that this was the line we weren't supposed to cross. But as his lips brushed mine, rough, urgent, tasting of regret and revelation, nothing in my world felt step anymore. It was just us, raw and real, tumbling into a chaos that would rewrite everything. I remember the exact moment it all started shifting. Though looking back, the signs were there from the day Mom's ashes scattered on that windy bluff overlooking the Pacific, leaving Dad a hollow shell who drowned his grief in 12-hour shifts at the auto shop. He met Sarah 6 months later at a grief support group in our sleepy corner of San Diego, two broken souls, piecing together a life from the wreckage, and just like that, she and her son Jake moved into our cramped ranch-style house on Elm Street, turning family into a word that felt as foreign as the faded American flag flapping lazily on the porch. I was 19, fresh out of high school, and drifting through community college classes on graphic design. My days a blur of sketch pads and suppressed sketches of boys I'd never touch. While Jake, 20 and built like the all-star quarterback he was, ruled the hallways of SDSU with his easy grin and girlfriends who hung on his arm like accessories. He was straight as the arrows on Dad's toolbox labels, beer pong with the brothers, tailgates under Friday night lights. The kind of guy who high-fived me like we were blood brothers, oblivious to the way my gaze lingered a beat too long on the flex of his biceps when he tossed a football in the backyard. But garages have a way of stripping away the bullshit. Dad's was his sanctuary, a concrete cave stacked with rusted fenders, oily rags, and the ghosts of cars he'd revived like Lazarus. It smelled of motor oil and possibility, the kind of place where men fixed what was broken without words. Jake took to it immediately, his calloused hands from summer construction gigs making quick work of the bolts I fumbled. And we'd spend evenings there after Sarah's yoga classes, the hum of the fluorescent lights our only soundtrack. Past the socket wrench. AUS, he'd say, bumping my shoulder with that brotherly ease. And I'd hand it over, our fingers brushing in ways that sent sparks up my arm I chalked up to static electricity. I was careful, always careful, closeted tighter than the lug nuts on a wheel rim. My coming-out fantasies confined to late-night scrolls through anonymous forums, hearts racing at pixels of freedom I'd never claim. Jake, he was the poster boy for normal dates with cheerleaders, locker room boasts about conquests that made my stomach twist with a jealousy I buried under jokes. "You're too pretty for your own good, little bro," he'd tease, ruffling my hair like I was still the kid he'd met 2 years ago, not the man whose dreams twisted around stolen glances at his profile in the rearview mirror during family road trips to Joshua Tree. That July evening, the one that cracked the foundation, the air was thick as molasses, the kind of California heat that makes your shirt cling like a second skin. Dad was pulling a double shift, Sarah at her book club dissecting some rom-com novel about forbidden love irony that hit me later like a tire iron to the gut. Jake and I were elbow-deep in the '67 Mustang Dad had bought on a whim, a rust bucket project meant to bond us, but really just an excuse for me to watch him work. He was shirtless, sweat tracing rivulets down the defined planes of his back, muscles coiling as he torqued a stubborn bolt. And God, I was a mess, pretending to focus on the carburetor while my mind spun filthy what-ifs that would get me disowned faster than a fumbled Hail Mary. "Hey, Earth to Austin," he said, wiping his forehead with the back of his arm, leaving a smudge of grease like war paint. You zoning out on me again. What's eating you? Man. His blue eyes locked on mine. Closer than usual. The garage suddenly feeling smaller. The world outside fading to a distant hum of sprinklers and cicadas. I shrugged it off with a laugh that sounded forced even to me. Grabbing a rag to dab at a phantom spill. Just thinking about that party tomorrow. You dragging me to another straight boy rager. It was our ritual tagging along to his frat scene. Nursing a solo cup of flat beer while he charmed the room. A wingman role that kept me close without raising flags. But tonight, his laugh didn't come easy. It trailed off into something heavier. His gaze dropping to the floor where oil stains bloomed like bruises. Nah. I might sit this one out. Head's not in it. He straightened, towering over me in the confined space. The scent of him sweat and aftershave and something uniquely Jake flooding my senses. My pulse thrummed. A traitor in my chest. And before I could bolt for the door, he stepped in. Close enough that I could count the freckles across his nose from too many beach days. Austin, there's something I've been meaning to. The wrench hit the floor then. My grip betraying me as his words hung unfinished. Electric. Time stretched. Taut as a bowstring. And when he didn't pull back. When his hand instead cupped the side of my face, thumb rough against my jaw. Eyes stormy with a vulnerability I'd never seen. I froze. Breath caught in my throat like a sob. What the hell are you doing? I whispered. But it came out wrecked. Wanting. And he closed the gap. His mouth crashing into mine with the force of a confession long damned. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate. Teeth and tongues, and the scrape of stubble. His free hand fisting my shirt to yank me flush against him. I tasted salt and surprise. My body igniting like the engine we'd just tuned. Revving wild and unchecked. Jake. My straight stepbrother. Kissing me in Dad's garage like the world was ending in that moment. It was everything I knew combusting in a blaze of what-ifs turned real. We broke apart gasping. Foreheads pressed together. His breath ragged against my lips. Fuck. Austin. I didn't mean I mean. I did. But Jesus. I've been fighting this for months. His voice cracked. That unbreakable jock armor splintering. And I saw it then, the fear mirroring my own. The way his hands trembled as they slid to my waist. Holding on like I'd vanish if he let go. Every time I look at you, it's like you're the only thing that makes sense. But I'm not supposed to feel this. For you. The words hung heavy, laced with shame and hunger. And something in me shattered to the walls I'd built to survive in a house of half-truths. A town where fag was still whispered like a curse behind cupped hands. I pulled him back in. Slower this time. Savoring the way he melted into it. Soft and yielding in ways his bravado never allowed. The garage light buzzed overhead, casting shadows that danced like accomplices. And for the first time, I wasn't hiding. I was seen. Wanted. By the one person who'd become my anchor without even trying. But secrets in small spaces don't stay buried. We spent the next hour tangled on the workbench. Whispers turning to touches that mapped uncharted territory, his fingers tracing the curve of my spine under my shirt. Mine threading through his hair as he murmured apologies and admissions against my skin. I thought it was just bro stuff. You know, the way I'd get jealous when you'd sketch those guys in your book. Or how I'd crash your movie nights just to sit closer. He laughed, bitter and broken, pulling me onto his lap amid scattered tools. The Mustang forgotten. I confessed to the ache of watching him with girls. The fantasies I'd sketched and shredded. The terror of loving someone who was supposed to be off limits. It was cathartic. A purge in the dim glow. Until the crunch of tires on gravel snapped us apart like guilty kids. Dad's truck. Home early. We scrambled. Hearts pounding. Straightening clothes and wiping lips. The air now thick with the aftertaste of what we'd unleashed. He left that night without a word, slipping upstairs to his room while I feigned sleep on the couch, replaying every second until dawn cracked the sky pink over the palm trees. The next day dawned sticky and surreal. Family breakfast a minefield of forced normalcy, Sarah chirping about weekend plans, Dad grumbling over coffee, Jake avoiding my eyes over his cereal like I'd imagined it all. But under the table, his foot nudged mine, a secret Morse code of "we're okay," and heat bloomed in my chest. Fragile as hope. That party. He bailed, texting me a lame excuse about homework, and I found myself wandering the beach alone, waves crashing like applause for the boy who'd finally breathed life into my shadowed world. Little did I know, the real storm was brewing not in us, but in the ripples we'd set loose, threatening to drag everything we loved under. The days blurred into a fever dream after that kiss, each one a tightrope walk between the life we'd known and the one we'd cracked open like an eggshell. Jake threw himself into football practice with a vengeance, bruises blooming on his knuckles from pads that hit too hard, as if channeling the confusion into tackles that left opponents limping. I'd catch him staring during family dinners, his fork hovering midair, blue eyes darkening with memories of garage shadows, only to jerk away when Sarah asked if he was feeling okay. Just tired, Mom, he'd mutter, forcing a grin that didn't reach his soul, and I'd choke down my mashed potatoes, pulse racing at the brush of his knee against mine under the oak table Dad had sanded smooth himself. It was torture, exquisite and agonizing. This dance of stolen glances and coded texts, meet me in the shed after dark, that pulled me under like riptides off Ocean Beach. Our first real slip-up came on a Thursday, the kind of autumn evening where the Santa Ana winds whispered wildfires on the horizon. Dad was at a veterans poker night, Sarah leading a mindfulness retreat in La Jolla, leaving the house echoing with absence. Jake cornered me in the hallway after I'd showered, steam still curling from the bathroom door, his body blocking escape like a linebacker reading a play. "AUS, we need to talk," he said, voice low and gravelly, but his hands betrayed him, one sliding up my arm, thumb circling the damp skin of my bicep. I should have pushed back, recited the litany of reasons this was a disaster. Stepbrothers, small-town gossip, his straight rep on the line, but instead, I leaned in, the terry cloth robe parting just enough to tease. "Talk later," I breathed, and we stumbled into my room, door clicking shut like a vow. It was slower then, exploratory, the urgency of the garage tempered by daylight fears. He mapped me with reverence, lips trailing from collarbone to navel, eliciting gasps I'd muffle into pillows embroidered with Mom's old cross-stitch. "You're beautiful," he murmured against my hip, words I'd longed for from anyone but never expected from him, his straight arrow certainty unraveling thread by thread. I flipped us, straddling his hips, watching his face contort in pleasure pain as I rocked against him, hands pinning his wrists above his head. "Say it again," I demanded, voice husky with power I'd rarely wielded. And he did, over and over, a mantra that bound us tighter than blood. We crested together in a tangle of limbs and whispers, the room spinning with aftershocks, until reality seeped back in the creak of floorboards, the distant howl of sirens from a brush fire miles away. Lying there, sweat cooling on sheets I'd washed 100 times alone, Jake traced lazy patterns on my chest, his breath steadying. "This scares the shit out of me. You know that." He propped on an elbow, jaw tight, the athlete's resolve warring with something softer. "What if Dad finds out? Or my coach? Hell, the team. They'd eat me alive." I swallowed the lump in my throat, fingers combing through his damp hair, grounding us both. "Then we fight it together. Or we don-thide until we're ready." "But Jake, pretending, that's killing us slower." He nodded, But doubt lingered in his eyes like smoke. And when he kissed my forehead gentle, almost paternal, it felt like a promise laced with peril. The peril hit hard the next week, during homecoming week at SDSU, when Jake's world and mine collided in neon lights and bass-thumping chaos. He'd insisted I come, as family, but the air crackled with undercurrents, his hand lingering too long on my shoulder as we navigated the tailgate throng. Beers flowed. Laughter boomed from keg stands. And there she was, Lila, his ex from last spring, all golden waves and sorority smiles, draping herself over him like a trophy. "Missed you, Jakey," she purred, lips brushing his ear, and I felt it like a gut punch. Jealousy souring the craft IPA in my solo cup. He extricated politely, but the seed was planted. Whispers started. "Jake's gone soft this season, too busy playing house with the stepkid." I bolted to the porta-potty line, vision blurring, when a meaty hand clamped my shoulder. Tyler, Jake's roommate, all linebacker bulk and beer gut, leered down. "Heard you two are thick as thieves. What's your secret?" "Pretty boy. Teaching him how to braid hair." The pack behind him hooted, slurs slithering like sidewinders. "Fairy stepbro." "Huh." And I froze. Fight or flight short-circuiting into numb defiance. "Fuck off, Ty," I spat, shoving past. But the damage was done. Jake caught the tail end, storming over like a thunderhead. "Back the hell up," he snarled, squaring up, fists clenched. Tyler laughed it off, but the tension lingered, a fracture in the brotherhood Jake cherished. That night, back in the garage, our unintended confessional paced like a caged wolf, kicking at a stray lug nut. "They're assholes. AUS. It doesn't mean shit." But his voice wavered, the weight of it all pressing down. And when he pulled me into a hug that turned fierce, it was clear the straight world was closing in, demanding he choose sides. We made love there on the drop cloth, urgent and reclaiming. Body speaking what words couldn't: "I love you. I need you. Don't let them win." But as he drove me home, radio crooning some country ballad about lost highways, I wondered if love like ours could outrun the reckoning barreling our way. Thanksgiving loomed like a guillotine, the holiday scent of turkey and tension thickening the air in our Elm Street home, where family ties strained under the polite veneer of passing mashed potatoes. Sarah outdid herself, the dining room aglow with candles flickering like uneasy sentinels. Dad carving the bird with mechanical precision, his eyes distant as ever since Mom. Jake sat across from me, knee jittering under the tablecloth, our secret a live wire humming between us, brushes of fingers over cranberry sauce, loaded glances over pie that said more than words ever could. "Pass the gravy, bro," he'd ask, voice casual, but his foot hooked mine, anchoring me through the small talk about college finals and Sarah's latest essential oils obsession. I played along, the dutiful stepson, but inside, I was a storm, replaying our stolen nights, the treehouse in the backyard where we'd whispered futures under star-pricked skies, or the cliffside overlook where he'd traced mine on my palm with a pocket knife, shallow enough to scar but deep enough to heal. It was the night after Black Friday madness raging on TV screens across suburbia that the first real crack appeared. Dad had scored a flat screen on discount, and we four hunkered in the living room, bowls of popcorn balanced on knees, some action flick exploding in surround sound. Jake and I shared the couch, bodies angled close under the Afghan Sarah knitted, his warmth seeping through like contraband. Halfway through, during a lull, his hand found my thigh, thumb stroking in lazy circles that shot fire straight to my core. I tensed, glancing at Dad's armchair silhouette, but the touch persisted, bold and unapologetic, until Sarah stirred from her spot on the floor, stretching with a yawn. "You boys seem cozy," she said lightly, eyes twinkling with maternal mischief. And Jake yanked away like scalded, face flushing crimson. Just cold. Mom, he mumbled. But the seed of suspicion took root, her gaze lingering a beat too long on the rumpled blanket. From there, the paranoia crept in like fog off the bay. Jake grew distant. Practices running late into the chill November dusk. Text sparse and coded, can't tonight. Rain check. Leaving me pacing my room. Sketchpad abandoned. Lines blurring into abstract anguish. I draw him anyway. From memory, the curve of his jaw in repose. The way his lashes fanned shadows on cheekbones dusted with stubble. It was masochistic, pouring love onto paper that could burn in an instant. But it kept him close when the house felt vast and empty. One midnight, unable to sleep, I slipped into the garage, the familiar tang of oil a bomb, and found him there hunched over the Mustang's hood, wrench in hand, but eyes red-rimmed like he'd been crying. Couldn't stay away. I teased softly, sliding up beside him, but he didn't smile. Instead, he set the tool down with a clink that echoed accusation. "AUS, we gotta cool it," he said, voice raw as sandpaper, not meeting my eyes. "Mom asked me point blank today if something's up with us. Said I seemed distracted around you." My stomach plummeted, the concrete floor rushing up to meet me, and I gripped the fender for balance. "And what did you say?" He finally looked at me, blue depths churning with torment. "Told her it's nothing, just school stress. But she's not stupid. Man. And Dad. If he knew, he'd look at me like I'm broken." The vulnerability gutted me. This golden boy who'd always been the fixer, now fracturing under the weight of us. I pulled him into my arms, his body rigid at first, then sagging against mine, sobs muffled into my shoulder. "You're not broken, Jake. We're not. It's the truest thing I've ever felt." We clung there, the garage a cocoon against the world, until resolve hardened in him like cooling metal. "We'll be smart. No more risks at home. But I can't lose you, Austin. Not now." His kiss was fierce, a seal on the pact, and we parted with plans so we can get away to Big Sur. My art retreat, cover Sterito, reclaim what the winds threatened to scatter. But fate, that cruel curator, had other scripts. Saturday morning, as I packed my duffel with stolen hoodies scented like him, Dad called me into the kitchen, coffee mugs steaming like unspoken questions. "Son, everything all right with you and Jake?" His voice was gruff, concern etching deeper lines around eyes that mirrored my own. I froze, lies tumbling easy from practice. "Yeah, Dad. Just navigating the brother thing." He nodded, clapping my shoulder. But the grip lingered, heavy with paternal intuition. "Good. Family's all we got left. Don't fuck it up." The drive to Big Sur was a revelation. Highway 1 unspooling like a ribbon of redemption. Cliffs plunging to turquoise seas that crashed with symphonic fury. We rented a cabin off the grid. Redwoods whispering privacy. And for 2 days, it was paradise, unmasked, no hiding. No half measures. Mornings tangled in flannel sheets. His laughter echoing as I sketched him nude by the window. Sunlight gilding skin marked with my bites. Afternoons hiking trails where he'd spin me against bark-rough trunks. Making love with the ocean's roar drowning our cries. Evenings by the fire. Sharing stories his first crush on a boy in middle school. Buried under locker room machismo. My mom's quiet acceptance before cancer stole her words. "She'd love you," I told him, tears salting our wine. And he held me through it, murmuring, "I'd give anything for that." But paradise erodes. On the way back, radio crackling with news of a hazing scandal ripping through SDSU's frat row, whispers of alternative lifestyles being outed like scarlet letters. Jake's face drained of color. That's why Ty's been side-eyeing me. he muttered, knuckles white on the wheel. Someone saw us at the tailgate. Put two and two. Paranoia bloomed anew, shadows lengthening as we crested the hills toward home. That night, back under Elm Street's eaves, the reckoning arrived via a pounding on Jake's door. Tyler, drunk and belligerent. Sarah trailing with wide-eyed worry. We need to talk. Bro. Ty slurred from the hall, and Jake's glance at me over the banister was pure dread. I slipped into the shadows, heart hammering, eavesdropping as accusations flew. You batting for the other team now. With him. Jake's denial was steel. Screw you. Time and your business. But the damage seeped. Sarah's voice soft with hurt. Is there truth to this? Honey. The fallout from Tyler's drunken ambush hung over the house like smog from the Inland Empire, choking the easy rhythms we'd clung to. Sarah didn't confront outright, but her hugs lingered, eyes searching Jake's face during breakfast where cereal spoons clinked like accusations. He'd withdraw further, holing up in the garage not for projects, but for solitude. The Mustang gathering dust as he stared at nothing. Jaw set in quiet fury. I'd find excuses to join him, need help with that gasket. But our touches turned tentative, fingertips grazing like apologies. The spark dimmed by fear's cold draft. It's spreading, he confessed one evening, voice barely above the hum of the space heater, as rain pattered on the tin roof like impatient fingers. Guys on the team are ghosting me. Coach pulled me aside, said focus on the game, not distractions. The word dripped venom, and I wanted to rage. To drive to campus and scream that love wasn't a penalty flag. But instead, I pulled him close, our foreheads touching in the half-light. Then let's own it, before it owns us. Christmas crept in on tinsel wings, the neighborhood ablaze with lights that mocked our dimming glow. Dad strung the tree in the living room, ornaments from Mom's era glinting like fragile memories. And Sarah baked gingerbread men with lopsided smiles, her optimism a shield against the undercurrents. We played the part gift exchanges under the boughs, Jake's arm slung casual around my shoulders for family photos, the flash capturing a normalcy that tasted like ash. But alone, in the attic amid boxes of holiday ghosts, we unraveled. I love you, he whispered, unwrapping me like a present, his mouth hot on my neck as snow flurried outside the frosted window. It was frantic, reclaiming, body slick with need born of deprivation. But afterward, as he traced the constellation of freckles on my chest, doubt crept in. What if I can't do this? AUS. The drafts in spring NFL scouts sniffing around. One wrong word, and it's over. His fear was a mirror to mine, reflecting the chasm between heart and ambition. And I hated how it carved hollows under his eyes, how my own sketches turned somber, figures entwined but edged in thorns. New Year's Eve sealed the fracture, a house party at Ty's off-campus rental. Bass thumping through walls papered in team banners, co-eds and sequins orbiting like satellites. Jake dragged me along, to show him nothing's changed. But the air was thick with sidelong stares, whispers curling like smoke from joints passed hand to hand. Lila cornered him by the keg, her laugh brittle as she leaned in too close. Missed this side of you, babe. And I watched from the kitchen, solo cups sweating in my grip, jealousy a vice. When she kissed his cheek lingering, performative he froze, then pulled back with a strained chuckle. But the room tittered, eyes flicking to me like I was the punchline. I fled to the backyard, chill air biting through my hoodie, stars smudged by city haze. When Jake found me, breath fogging as he yanked me behind the fence. That was nothing, swear it. He panted, hands framing my face. But his eyes were wild, hunted. They're watching us. AUS. Like vultures. We kissed there, defiant against the picket slats, tongues tangling with the desperation of countdowns ticking toward midnight. Fireworks bloomed overhead as we came undone, hidden in shadows. But the boom masked Tyler's approach, his shadow looming as he rounded the corner. Phone flashlight piercing like judgment. Holy shit. He breathed. Video rolling before Jake could launch. This goes viral. Assholes. The clip spread like flu in a dorm, grainy. Damning. Jake's hands on me. Our mouths fused in evidence. By dawn, Jake's phone exploded notifications from teammates. WTF, dude. Coaches, meeting Monday. Even distant relatives chiming in with Bible verses Sarah forwarded in tears. Dad saw it at the shop. Storming home with thunder in his veins. Face purple as he slammed the door. What the hell is this? He roared, thrusting the screen at Jake, who stood pale in the foyer. Me hovering like a ghost. Sarah sobbed in the kitchen, clutching her cross necklace. My boy. How could you hide this? Jake's voice broke the din. Steady as rebar, because I love him. Dad. Austin's not step, he's everything. The room spun. Confessions crashing like waves. And Dad's fist met the wall. Plaster cracking like hearts. Get out. Both of you. I can't. Not now. We fled to my beat-up Civic. Bags tossed hasty in the trunk. Rain sluicing the windshield as San Diego receded in the rearview. Jake's hand found mine over the gear shift. Grip ironclad. But tears carved tracks down his cheeks. Ruined it all. He choked. And I pulled over on a bluff. Pulling him across the console into a hug that tasted of salt and starting over. Now saved it. The truth. Finally. But as thunder rumbled, mirroring the storm in my chest, I wondered if love could weather exile, or if we'd just traded one cage for the open road's uncertainties. Exile tasted like stale diner coffee and motel neon. The first week's a blur of Highway 101 northbound, chasing fog-shrouded coasts towards San Francisco's promise of rainbow flags and reinvention. We'd pooled what cash we had, me barista savings from the college cafe. Jake's construction side gigs enough for a threadbare studio in the Castro. Walls papered in vintage posters. Bed a futon that creaked under our weight like weary applause. Days. I hustled sketches for tourists. Charcoal portraits capturing queer joy on sidewalks alive with drag queens and dog walkers. Nights. Jake waitered at a dive bar. His broad frame dodging propositions with a grin that masked the ache of lost scholarships. Scouts stopped calling. He'd admit in the witching hour. Bodies entwined under threadbare quilts. My fingers tracing the roadmap of bruises from amateur leagues he'd joined in desperation. But here, with you, feels like winning. San Francisco swallowed us whole. A city of reinvention where stepbrothers could morph into lovers without footnotes. We found a tribe in the leather bars of Soma. Jake's initial stiffness melting into laughter over rainbow shots. His hand in mine unremarkable amid the mosaic of identities. I came out fully there. No half-shadows posting our story on anonymous forums that bloomed into a blog. Garage hearts. Raw essays on forbidden sparks that drew messages from kids like us. Whispers of, "You're not alone," that mended fractures we didn't know bled. Jake read them aloud some evenings. Voice thick. This one's from a guy in Texas, stepdad disowned him too. Says we give him hope. It was human. Profoundly so. Turning our pain into beacon. The value of visibility etching deeper than any tattoo. But scars itch. Spring thawed into summer. And the call came on a drizzly afternoon, Dad. Number unblocked on a whim. Voice gravel over static. Come home. Son. We need to talk. Jake hesitated. Phone clutched like a grenade. But I nodded. Family's worth the fight. The drive south was a gauntlet. Palms sweating as billboards blurred by. Memories of garage confessions replaying like a greatest hits of heartache. Home loomed unchanged, Elm Street's flag still flapping. Mustang gleaming in the drive. Dad's handiwork a silent truce. Sarah met us at the door, eyes puffy but arms open, pulling Jake into a hug that dissolved him. "I'm sorry, Mom, for hiding." She cupped his face, tears mirroring his. Love doesn't hide at heels. Dad waited in the garage, our origin altar, tools laid out like peace offerings. He looked older, lines etched by months of silence. But when he pulled Jake into a bear hug, fierce, unyielding, something in the air shifted. The concrete floor warmer underfoot. "I was wrong," he rumbled, clapping my shoulder next. Grip tentative then firm. "Lost your mom. Thought I'd lose you too. But blood or step doesn't define us. Actions do." We talked then, raw and rambling, over beers cracked from the mini fridge, his own buried doubts from Nam days, Sarah's quiet allyship in support groups for queer youth. No lightning bolts, just incremental grace, the kind that rebuilds bridges plank by plank. Yet the world beyond home sharpened claws. Jake's coach reinstated him tentatively, with "keep it clean" caveats, but the team fractured. Lockers scrawled with slurs that Jake washed away with fists clenched but unused. Tyler apologized in a parking lot mea culpa. Video deleted in shamefaced regret. But the whispers lingered. A low hum under cheers. I faced my own gauntlet at community college, coming out in a design seminar that erupted in support professors sharing stories, classmates sketching solidarity murals. But one night, as Jake and I walked the beach under moon tides, he stopped, sand shifting underfoot. "What if it's not enough? Then they'll crucify me." Fear shadowed his eyes again, the straight boy's ghost haunting our hard-won peace. I took his face and hands calloused from charcoal, kissing him salt spray fierce. Then we pivot. "Coach, commentator, whatever, as long as it's us." He nodded. But the seed of sacrifice took root, blooming into decisions that tested our core. Fall semester. Jake deferred the draft, enrolling at a local uni with a communications major, trading pigskin glory for podcast mics where he shared our story raw. Redemptive. Ratings soaring on vulnerability's wave. It hurt, watching him grieve the field from bleachers. But each interview mended. Fans tweeting garage hearts heels, turning personal into profound. By winter's grip, our rhythm steadied San Diego's sun, a reluctant accomplice, thawing the last frosts between us and home. Dad invited us for Sunday barbecues, grill smoke curling like olive branches, where he'd grunt approvals over Jake's latest episode downloads. "Proud of you, kid. Takes guts." Sarah baked us pies laced with lavender from her garden, slipping articles on queer icons into care packages. Her love a quiet revolution. Jake thrived in the spotlight's softer glare. His voice, once locker room bravado, now a timbre of empathy, interviewing activists whose stories wove into ours like tapestry threads. "It's not about the labels anymore," he'd say on air, hand squeezing mine off mic. "It's about the human underneath." But Kitsch Tin brewed in subtler storms. Lila resurfaced at a campus art show. My garage echoes exhibit canvases of us, abstracted in oil and shadow, drawing crowds that included her, eyes wide with unfeigned awe. "Jake never looked at me like that," she admitted over cheap wine. "No malice, just melancholy." "You too. It's real." Later, she joined our circle, a bridge from Jake's past, her sorority hosting panels on fluidity that chipped at old binaries. Yet jealousy flickered, irrational embers when she'd hug him too tight, and I'd douse them with talks under pier lights. Waves lapping confessions. She was rehearsal. "You're the symphony." The real gay can hit in March. Draft season's shadow lengthening. Scouts circled like sharks. One a grizzled ex-pro from the Rams pulling Jake aside after a pickup game. Offer dangling like bait. "We can overlook the personal stuff. Play straight." Kid pun intended. Jake came home hollowed, collapsing on the futon with a beer he nursed like poison. They want me. AUS. But on their terms closet the door. Smile for cameras. Rage boiled in me. Hot as summer asphalt. And I paced our tiny kitchen. Pots clanging punctuation to my tirade. Sell your soul. For what, a jersey that chokes you? He pulled me down. Argument dissolving into urgency. Bodies colliding on linoleum cold as compromise. I choose us. He gasped against my throat. Decision crystallizing in the arch of his back. The bite of teeth on shoulder. We turned down the offer. Headlines buzzing, rising star opts out for love. The backlash roared, trolls flooding his feeds with vitriol. Sponsors ghosting. Even Dad fielding calls from old shop buddies with concerned tones. Jake armored up, deleting apps. But the nights grew long. Insomnia carving hollows as he stared at ceilings etched with doubt. I'd wake to find him sketching clumsy lines of football fields fading into open roads and hold him through tremors. Whispering litanies of worth beyond winds. You're enough. I'd murmur. Lips to pulse points. And slowly, the tide turned. A indie league in Portland scouted him not for glory, but grit, offering a spot with a clause for authenticity. Be you on the field. He signed, tears salting ink. And we celebrated with takeout tacos on the roof. City lights winking approval. Lang Man deepened in those valleys. Our love a forge tempering stronger. Anniversaries marked not dates, but milestones, the garage's 1-year echo with candlelit recreations. Tools polished as toasts. A ring exchanged in Big Sur's redwoods. Simple bands engraved, nothing felt step again. Intimacy evolved too. Beyond frenzy to reverence. Slow dances in the living room to Mom's old vinyls. Jake's hands learning the language of my scars. Me mapping his with kisses that healed. I never knew touch could say this much. He'd breathe. And I'd laugh. Pulling him closer. Bodies a dialogue of devotion. Yet human frailty lingered. One April dawn. Sarah called in hysterics, Dad. Chest pains at the shop. Ambulance sirens wailing. We raced south. Tires screaming on wet pavement. Jake's hand vice-tied in mine. Hospital waiting room was purgatory. Fluorescent hum mocking our prayers. Until the doctor emerged. Angina. Not heart attack. Stress-related. Relief crashed. But the mirror held our coming out's toll on him. Unspoken. In the room. Tubes snaking like regrets. Dad gripped Jake's hand. Don't regret a damn thing. Boys. Life's too short for closets. It was absolution. Profound and paternal. Stitching wounds we thought festered. Summer swelled with second chances. Portland's call pulling us north like a magnet to steal Jake's league tryouts, a proving ground of sweat and second guesses. The city's craft brew scene a balm for bruised egos. We sublet the Castro studio to a poet couple. Their love letters left in drawers like talismans. And loaded the Civic with dreams packed tight, my portfolio bursting with commissions from Garage Hearts fans. Jake's duffel stuffed with cleats polished to defiance. The drive was epic. Playlists of Anthem Springsteen to Hosier soundtracking pit stops at diners where waitresses winked at our clasped hands. No side-eye. Just pie a la mode, and you two make a cute team. Portland embraced us. Rain-slick streets gleaming like invitations. Our apartment aloft overlooking the Willamette. Exposed brick whispering permanence. Jake made the roster undrafted underdog to starter in weeks. His play's gritty poetry that commentators dubbed the redemption run. Fans chanted his name at games. Rainbow scarves waving amid the green. And post-victory, he'd barrel into the stands, scooping me up in a kiss that flashed on jumbotrons. Cheers drowning any booze. This is for us. He'd roar over locker room din. And I'd beam from the family section. Sarah and Dad beaming beside me. Their presence of victory sweeter than stats.